Brett Barr versus Kamala Harris. They spar over immigration and Biden's mental capacity. They also talk about previous policies. And it turns out that Kamala is just losing all types of enthusiasm for her base. See, Kamala, the ship is sinking for old Kamala Harris. Kamala just doesn't have what it takes anymore. And the thing is, this video here, these videos I got, highlights from her conversation on Fox News, maybe it's a good thing that Kamala doesn't do another debate. Because every time Kamala speaks, I don't know what she's saying, but she fails miserably. So here we go. The first one about Biden's mental capacity.
You call Donald Trump, he's misguided. You say now
he's unstable. He is unstable, Brett.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
Oh! Hey, you can't hide it. And Kamala, you did say that, oh, yeah, he's running circles around the staff. Maybe the reason why he's running circles around the staff is because when they were changing his diaper, he got off the table and ran around, and people were trying to capture him and clean up the mess while he's taking a good old morning dump all over the White House. Hey, the White House ain't called the White House anymore. It's called the shit stain house.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump.
It's Trump. It's Trump. You got to bring it up. But hold on. You say that Joe Biden's not on the ballot. Oh, boy. Joe Biden's listening to that interview. You tell a little bit of him is fuming about that.
Is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump.
But you talked about it.
And Donald Trump
after George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out, even people who worked for him in the Oval Office.
But there's also another thing here, too. Now, listen, I am not an expert in strategizing, especially when it comes down to politics, but Kamala Harris literally fell over or fell for the most obvious trap ever. I mean, she got smoked during this interview. I know there's a lot of things that people want to say about Trump, this, that, and the other, or Trump's going to use the military against his opponents. No, that's not going to happen. That's not going to happen. That's just Trump talk. He said that stuff before, and guess what? Nothing changed. And before anybody panics, well, gee, kid, that's kind of serious. Well, gee, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, people of all ages, the military and the Secret Service, the NSA, CIA have been spying in on us for years. So the military is already being used against us. The military-industrial complex is already being used against us. Okay? Started with Bush Jr., NSA spying in on us, Obama giving NSA more powers, including the CIA, then Trump, then Biden. What's the difference? It's not going to be like the 1930s where political police and you got Commissar Hans knocking at the door. No, folks. No, they're already listening onto you on your cell phones, looking at your emails. Edward Snowden warned us about this. Julian Assange warned us about it. But yet this person here, Kamala Harris, is being hyped up by the liberal sphere that she is the end-all, be-all candidate, that she's the one that's going to save us all. Or to quote TYT when they made that dumb statement of, save us, Kamala, way back in 2022. No, Kamala's not going to save anybody.
He's unstable.
Unstable?
He is unstable.
And then now she's talking about Trump being unstable. Lady, you can't put together a coherent sentence without even mentioning, yes, I grew up in a middle-class family.
He's not well. You say he's mentally not stable.
He's not stable.
Let me ask you this. You told many interviewers that Joe Biden was on his game, that ran around circles on his staff. When did you first notice that President Biden's mental faculties appeared diminished?
So I'm playing this video again because, look, folks, when she is saying and constantly addressing the fact that Biden is unstable or that Trump is unstable, they're ignoring the fact that Biden himself was also on his downfall.
Joe Biden, I have watched from the Oval Office to the Situation Room, and he has the judgment and the experience to do exactly what he has done in making very important decisions on behalf of the American people.
There were no concerns raised?
Brett, Joe Biden is not on the ballot.
I understand.
And Donald Trump
but
is.
You talked about it.
And Donald Trump
After George Clooney said within a few minutes of talking to President Biden at a fundraiser that he thought this was not the same Joe Biden that we saw on the debate stage.
Donald Trump is on the ballot.
I understand. You met with him at least once a week for 3.5 years. You didn't have any concerns?
I think the American people have a concern about Donald Trump, which is why the people who know him best, including leaders of our national security community, have all spoken out. Even people who worked for him in the Oval Office, worked with him in the Situation Room, and have said he is unfit and dangerous and should never be president of the United States again, including his former vice president, which is why the job was open for him to choose another running mate. So that is a fact. That is a fact.
Tim Higgins. She's from a middle-class family and Trump. Now, remember, Kamala used to be the border czar. This was the person that Biden put in charge. Remember, she told the Ecuadorian immigrants and everybody else, do not come. Do not come.
You know, voters tell pollsters all over the country and here in Pennsylvania that immigration is one of the key issues that they're looking at this election, and specifically the influx of illegal immigrants from more than 150 countries. How many illegal immigrants would you estimate your administration has released into the country over the last 3.5 years?
Well, I'm glad you raised the issue of immigration because I agree with you. It is a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. And you know what I'm going to talk about.
Yeah, but do you just a number? Do you think it's 1 million, 3 million?
Brett, let's just get to the point. Okay.
She can't answer the question. Get ready for a word salad in 3, 2, and uno.
The point is that we have a broken immigration system that needs to be repaired.
So your Homeland Security Secretary said that 85% of apprehensions.
I'm not finished. We have
it's a rough estimate of 6 million people have been released into the country. And let me just finish. I'll get to the question. I promise you.
I was beginning to answer.
And when you came into office, your administration immediately reversed a number of Trump border policies. Most significantly, the policy that required illegal immigrants to be detained through deportation, either in the U.S. or in Mexico. And you switched that policy. They were released from custody awaiting trial. So instead, included in those were a large number of single men, adult men, who went on to commit heinous crimes. So looking back, do you regret the decision to terminate Remain in Mexico at the beginning of your administration?
Now, I gave this warning to a lot of activists and organizers during the early days when the sanctuary cities or the concept of a sanctuary city was being proposed. Now, on the one hand, look, the reason why we have a migration crisis is because of the policies done by Democratic and Republican presidential administrations, the sanctions, the coups, and the war on drugs. Never asked what the CIA did to make Pablo Escobar the guy who he is. El Chapo! I mean, come on. CIA. Look at this role that it did with the booger sugar. And trust me, Anna, folks, you're going to be enraged. So when you see the entire region being engulfed with drug cartels and tyrants and civil wars, a rational person is going to want to get out and leave. But the problem is The sanctuary cities were never prepared. This whole concept of sanctuary cities sounded good on paper. It sounded very humane. I get it. But there was never a plan. And because of this, with the way the Biden-Harris administration implemented these policies, we have now a serious problem, especially in a lot of the sanctuary cities, but also at the border as well. And the kids are still in cages, but you don't see AOC or any other Democrats putting on any kind of performative art. It's just there for show. And Kamala was the one in charge. She was the border czar. How do you think she handled that job? She failed miserably.
Beginning of our administration, within practically hours of taking the oath, the first bill that we offered Congress, before we worked on infrastructure, before the Inflation Reduction Act, before the Chips and Science Act, before the bipartisan Safer Communities Act, the first bill, practically within hours of taking the oath, was a bill to fix our immigration system.
Yes, ma'am. It was called the U.S. Citizenship Act of 2021.
Exactly.
It was essentially a pathway to citizenship for the. Yes, ma'am.
May I finish responding, please?
But
you have to let me finish.
You
please.
had the White House.
Do not come. Let me finish. Do not come. Let me finish. Do not come. Let me finish.
And the House and the Senate,
I'm
and
in
they
the
didn't bring
middle
up
of
that
responding to the point you're raising,
Okay.
and I'd like to finish.
Oh, excuse me. I like to finish, she said. Let me finish. But let's go ahead and pull up this part because, again, she mentions the border. Yeah, don't worry about it.
You said repeatedly that the border was secure. When in your mind did it start becoming a crisis?
I think we've had a broken immigration system transcending, by the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear. I think we all are.
Hold on. Say that again, Kamala, because that's a perfect attack ad that Donald Trump and his team could definitely use against you. Hell, anybody could use that against you.
Administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is.
You have no pride. Oh, say that again, Kamala.
By the way, Donald Trump's administration, even before. Let's all be honest about that. I have no pride in saying that this is a perfect immigration system. I've been clear. I think we all are. That it needs to be fixed.
But you're in charge of it, Kamala. You were the border czar. You were a border czar. You were in charge of it. But yet Kamala is trying to say that the country's a mess because of Donald Trump. Donald Trump isn't president right now. And you guys had ample opportunity to fix things.
People tell the country is on the wrong track. They say the country is on the wrong track. If it's on the wrong track, that track follows 3.5 years of you being vice president and President Biden being president. That is what they're saying, 79% of them. Why are they saying that? If you're turning the page, you've been in office for 3.5 years.
And Donald Trump has been running for office.
But you've been the person holding the office.
Come on.
Madam
You
Vice
and I
President.
both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking
Oh! I actually don't. What are you talking about? I love it. I love it.
I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm
You and I both know what I'm talking about. Actually, I don't know what you're talking about. Hold on one more time. I'm sorry. I got to be petty because F you Democrats.
I both know what I'm talking about. You and I both know what I'm talking about.
I actually don't. What are you talking about?
What I'm talking about is that over the last decade,
But
people
you're the
have
lever of
become.
power.
But listen, over the last.
Gotta love it. Gotta love it. But by the way, folks, you know, if you're president of the United States or you're running for president, it's important to always show up on time because good old Brett Barr, he had some comments at the end of the entire interview.
You know, when the kicker in football, they call a timeout right before he's going to kick the field goal. They're icing the kicker. So we were supposed to start at 5 p.m. This was the time they gave us. Originally, we were going to do 25 or 30 minutes. They came in and said, well, maybe 20. So it was already getting whittled down. And then the vice president showed up about 5:15. We were pushing the envelope to be able to turn it around for the top of the 6 o'clock. So that's how it started. And I could tell when we started talking that she was going to be tough to redirect without me trying to interrupt. I did this with President Obama. At one point, I just said, Mr. President, I know you like the filibuster. I just didn't even have the chance to sometimes redirect in those ways. I had a lot of other questions.
But they quit. They quit. And of course, there were highlights of this interview and what took place. So Vice President Harris on Wednesday sparred at length with Fox News anchor Brett Barr over immigration in a rare sit-down with the network. Barr opened the interview by asking Harris how many immigrants had crossed the southern border during the Biden administration, as Harris acknowledged immigration was a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. That is a word salad sentence if I ever heard one. It's a topic of discussion that people want to rightly have. Does her brain work, or is she really stupid? Never mind. You know what? She's probably stupid. Barr then pressed Harris on the Biden administration decision to end a Trump-era policy that forced potential asylum seekers to stay in Mexico and wait out the results of their case in U.S. immigration court. Harris noted that the first proposed piece of legislation President Biden put forward after being sworn in was an immigration bill. Barr noted that the bill never came up for a vote despite Democrats controlling the House and Senate. We recognize from day one that at one point of this being your first question, it is a priority for us as a nation and for the American people, and our focus has been on fixing a problem. None of that makes sense, Kamala. That's what Kamala Harris said, pointing to the White House's proposal to increase resources at the border, bolster penalties for illegal crossings, and deal with points of entry. She then went on to hit former President Trump, of course, because you got to blame Trump for everything, for opposing a bipartisan border security proposal earlier this year, saying her opponent would prefer to run on a problem instead of fixing a problem. And this election, this is rightly a discussion the American people want to have. That is so ignorant, okay? And this is in regards to, even then, too, about families that even lost their loved ones due to men who entered the country illegally and lost their lives. Do you owe those families an apology? Here is what Kamala Harris said. Those are tragic cases. There's no question about that. There's no question about that. Why'd you say it twice? And I can't imagine the pain that the families of those victims have experienced for a loss that should not have occurred. So that is true. It is also true that if a border security bill had actually been passed 9 months ago, it would have been 9 months. We would have had more border agents at the border, more support for folks who are working around the clock, trying to hold it all together, ensure that no future harm would occur. Kamala, do you even know how to put words together? This election is 20 days. This election in 20 days will determine whether we have a president of the United States who actually cares about fixing a problem, even if it's not to their potential political advantage in an election, she added. This woman cannot speak. And no, this isn't being this. I'm not trying to be mean on purpose, but my goodness, this explains so much because, again, she's also, as a president, not even reaching out to progressives, but holding out for hope that Republican voters will support her over Trump.
There's clearly been a concerted effort from the campaign to talk to disaffected Republicans. The vice president appeared with Liz Cheney not long ago, yesterday with dozens of former Republicans, and sort of saying, look, we're a safe space sort of in the middle. Talk to us about that strategy, but also, is there a concern, though, by doing that, by reaching out to the Republicans, is there any fear of dampening enthusiasm among the base, those progressives who the campaign also needs to turn out?
No, absolutely. Look, we are proud to have the support of Liz Cheney. We are proud to have the support of dozens of former Trump.
She's proud to have the support of Liz Cheney. And then she goes on to say, we're happy to have support of dozens of people from the Trump administration. We're going to rewind that. I didn't mean to pause it here, but listen again. People who are with Donald Trump are supporting Kamala Harris. So people within the Trump administration, the former Trump administration, are with Kamala. So when Joe Biden said nothing would fundamentally change, that's on the point. No matter who sits in the White House, nothing fundamentally changes.
Liz Cheney. We are proud to have the support of dozens of former Trump administration officials, people who stood with her yesterday at the event where they came out and really showed their support for the vice president. It also reinforces the fact that she will be a president for all Americans, even those who don't vote for her. You talked about in the previous segment how she's going to some rural parts of the country. So is Governor Walz, making it clear to the American people the contrast between her and Donald Trump. The fact that she will expand reproductive freedoms, that she will lower costs for families, that she will put the American people first, in contrast with Trump, who will be that much more dangerous at Trump 2.0. Project 2025 would be an incredibly dangerous agenda if implemented. So she wants to make sure that every single American understands that. She knows that there are a lot of Republicans out there who are still undecided, and she wants to make it clear that she will fight for them just as much as she will fight for a progressive family, a progressive person who lives in a different part of the country who may not share the same values as some Republicans who support her, but she will be their president.
Lucy Bell, nothing changes and nothing will. Hey, liberals, I thought you didn't like anyone associated with Donald Trump. But see, here's the thing. Mark my words, folks. The way Bush got rehabilitated, the way the Cheneys got rehabilitated by corporate media, someday, not today, but a few years down the road, there's going to be a quasi Ellen DeGeneres kind of show. Because remember, Bush was on Ellen DeGeneres' show and she was doing her goofy dance with him. I'm so glad her show got canceled, by the way, because she's a horrible, horrible person. But the very sad truth is that you have all these liberals panicking about Trump, and yet people who are in Trump's administration are now with Kamala, and liberals are dancing for joy. They got the joy. They got the joy back. That, goodness gracious, people are leaving Trump, so now they're on their side. So now they're good guys again. So John Bolton is a good guy again. Mike Pence is a good guy again. All those people surrounding Trump during his first 4 years in office, because there was Kamala, according to liberal logic, according to corporate media logic, they're the good guys, just like Dick Cheney and Liz Cheney. Nothing ever changes, folks. And Kamala, even then, when she's trying to speak her case, she shows up late to interviews. She doesn't show up to interviews. She stutters. She stammers. Where's her support animal, Tim Walz? Tim Walz, where you at? Tampon Tim, where you at, buddy? Probably stuck somewhere, all bloody and messy. But this is, again, how the Democrats operate. Kamala couldn't hold her own in a Fox News interview. She couldn't present any kind of information to inspire voters to support her. She couldn't say anything to really change people's minds. She just gave word salad. And Kamala was the border czar. Kamala was with Joe Biden for the last 4 years. And during that time, she has the audacity to say that Biden was running circles around her staff and his own staff, that Biden was the sharpest attack, that he knew what he was doing. Since 2020, Heartland's Media, we've been covering politics, right? We've been doing this since 2017, though. But during the Biden administration, we've been covering stories about Joe Biden. Do you want to know what's very fascinating and consistent about all of it? We covered his ongoing decline, his mental decline, Kamala's inability to do her job as vice president. Consistency is key, corporate media. You might want to be taking some notes from independent media. But oh, wait. Corporate media, big tech, they're on a super fast rush to silence independent media. Because we've been talking about how Biden's on the decline and how his administration's covering for him. We've been talking about how Kamala isn't qualified to be VP. Somehow, now, maybe people will wisen up. I'm not expecting corporate media or the entire environment to change overnight. But that interview alone, Democrats, are you sure Kamala has what it takes? Because she was struggling. It looks like she needed maybe some milk and cookies afterwards. Because if you can't answer and you're so combative, and the whole interview only lasted about 24 minutes. 24 minutes for her to get her point across. And if you can't get your point across like that, if you're constantly giving word salad, Kamala, well, I don't know how you're going to inspire voters to turn out to vote. And this whole idea of hoping that Republican voters are going to save the day, or either that progressive voters will save the day for your campaign, you're in for a complete disaster.